Hey guys, Brian Davis here from Spark Rental. Super glad to be with you on this Tuesday afternoon. It is just me today. Denny is out of the office for the day, so you're stuck with just me. So last week we talked about we talked about how cap rates are down nationwide and whether that means you should look elsewhere other than investing in real estate. And if you do want to invest in real estate, other ways to do so beyond just going out and buying a property in the MLS and potentially overpaying and not earning enough rental income to make it a good investment. Today, we're talking all about ways to guarantee on-time rent payments. And we're going to keep it super simple and short and sweet today. So we're just going to go through 5 ways to guarantee on-time rent payments. And we use the term guarantee a little loosely. There's a little hyperbole here among content marketers, right? But at least one of these is an actual guarantee. So we're going to jump right in. As you guys join us, let me know where you're tuning in from. Shoot your questions away. I will be answering them, of course, in real time, as always. So first way to guarantee on-time rent payments is to buy rent default insurance. Now, this is a new concept for a lot of landlords, and it's actually a new concept here in the US. It's pretty common overseas. The way it works is you buy an insurance policy once a year. You have an annual premium, which is usually a few $100, in the $400-ish range a year for your typical rental property. And what happens is if your tenants fail to make their rental payments, the insurance kicks in and makes the rent payments to you until you have managed to evict them and replace them with a paying tenant. So you can buy this policy and then sleep well at night knowing that you're going to get your rent come hell or high water, and nothing is going to get in the way of you making your mortgage payments and covering your other expenses as a landlord. So we highly recommend that you check out rent default insurance. It takes an enormous amount of the risk out of being a landlord and having rental properties. So we'll send a link in the comments here to Steady, which is a company that we like for rent default insurance. You can check them out. And number 2 is accepting rent payments by credit card, because sometimes your tenants do want to pay their rent on time, but they don't actually have enough cash sitting in their checking account. So you can service them. You can let them make their rent payment on time by making the rent payment by credit card instead of having to write you a check or show up at your doorstep with cash. And we do offer this service on our online landlord software. It's free for you as the landlord. If the tenant pays by ACH, which is bank transfer, then it's free for them as well. If they pay by credit card, there is a small surcharge on it for them, but it's still smaller than paying a late fee to you. So they still come out ahead. And most credit cards offer rewards. So even though they're paying a small surcharge on top of their rent to pay by credit card, some of that they get back in the form of credit card rewards. So it makes for a super easy way for them to pay their rent, even if they don't have quite enough money in their checking account at that point in the month to make their rent payment to you. Third way that you can guarantee on-time rent payments is by reporting the rent payments to the credit bureaus. So you can do this usually through third-party rent payment platforms like Spark Rental. This is something that we are about to start offering for all of our landlords and tenants across the board. There will not be any extra fee for it. It's just going to be free and included for all landlords and tenants on rent payments processed through our platform. But we're not the only service out there that does this, right? I mean, there are a couple others out there that also report the rent payments to the credit bureaus. And this works because it's both a carrot and a stick. So tenants get rewarded for making their rent payments on time in the form of better credit, and they get penalized beyond just the late fee for making late rent payments, right? Because it hurts their credit. So it's a great simultaneous carrot and stick to ensure your online, or to ensure you get on-time rent payments from your tenants. All right, number 4 is enforcement. You have to defend the boundaries of your lease agreement because it's human nature to push boundaries. And your tenants are going to try paying the rent, the day before it's late, and then they'll pay it the day that it becomes late, and they'll just see how you react, because they've got a ton of bills to pay, right? The rent is not their only bill, so they're going to see what they can get away with if they're feeling pinched that month. And it is your job as the landlord to defend those boundaries. So if the rent becomes late, you serve the eviction notice immediately on them. Now, an eviction notice does not mean you will be evicted. It means if you don't pay your rent, you will be evicted. So way too many landlords, they pussyfoot around this, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I just want to give them a few more days. Guess what? The eviction process takes many months in most jurisdictions, and tenants can bring the rent current up until the actual lockout date. So serving an eviction warning notice is not heartless. It is not kicking families out on the street. It is just the first step in a very long legal process that you have to go through. And again, it is simply a warning letter telling the tenant that if they do not pay their rents, then you will initiate the eviction process, which again is a very long legal process. So draw those boundaries and defend them. As soon as the rent becomes late, serve an eviction warning notice. Now, these are state specific. There are different letters for every single state in the US. This is actually something we do also offer for free on our software, on our landlord software. So I will stick a link to that as well. But yeah, and there are also, not only are there different letters for each state, but there are actually different letters for different lease violations. So they do get tricky, but we do have a database of these for free on our landlord software. Teresa says, I need the service desperately. Does the tenant have to initiate the service, or can the landlord? And Teresa, I'm guessing you're asking about online rent collection, and it's intended to be initiated by the landlord. However, tenants can invite their landlord to participate as well. So if you go to sparkrental.com, you can create a free account on there and start collecting online rent payments by ACH, which is bank transfer, or by credit card, or both rather. You accept both types of payments, and the tenant chooses what style of payment or what type of payment they want to make when they submit their rent payment. All right, finally, the last way that you can guarantee on-time rent payments, and this is an oldie but goodie, is simple prevention through aggressive tenant screening. The old proverb is true: an ounce of prevention is absolutely worth a pound of cure. You can identify which tenants are going to pay their rents on time based on what they've done in the past. Investment brokers always say, past performance does not indicate future results. But the fact is, when it comes to tenant screening, it does. Because in my experience, there are basically two types of people in this world. And those are people who absolutely pay every single bill on time. They are driven to do it. They philosophically feel the need to pay their bills on time. They are organized. They are conscientious. It is part of their DNA. And then there are people who never saw a bill they wanted to pay on time in their life. They hem and haw and say, well, yeah, I guess I got to pay this bill. So you want the former, right? You want the kind of person who pays every single bill on time, every month, no exception, come rain or shine. So tenant screening. And yes, that does include things like credit reports and criminal background checks and eviction history reports. And those are all things that we offer, of course, through our software. But it goes beyond that. It involves calling up former and current landlords and asking about, does this tenant pay their rent on time? How do they treat the rental property? Have you had any trouble with them? Have they ever sued you? It involves calling up the tenant's supervisor and their employer and verifying their income. And do they show up to work on time every day? Are they conscientious on the job? All of these things are part of tenant screening. It's not just the reports, although, as someone who sells these reports, I don't want to, devalue them. But tenant screening is more than just running the reports. It is also all of the other due diligence involved. And ideally, you want to go and actually see how they treat their current home. Find an excuse to go visit them at their current home and see how they treat it. Because being a good tenant does not just come down to paying the rent on time. It also depends on how they treat the property. So, all right, to wrap this up, 5 ways to guarantee on-time rent payments. First, buy rent default insurance. We like Steady. In fact, they're the only one operating in the US that we're aware of. There's a link to them in the comments there. Number 2, accept credit cards for rent payments. And this is great for tenants who are a little pinched that month and don't quite have enough in their bank account to make the payment on time, but they still want to pay the rent on time. Number 3, report the rents to the credit bureaus. It's both a carrot and a stick for incentivizing your tenants to pay the rent on time. Number 4, serve eviction warning notices immediately when the rent becomes late. Do not let that slide, because tenants will push your boundaries. And number 5, screen your tenants aggressively before ever signing a lease agreement with them. All right, that's it, you guys. So, again, Denny will be back next week. You're stuck with just me today, but let us know what you want us to go over next week. We'd love to hear from you, and we will catch you on the flip side.